up, wall fans, common sensors, social media world? Welcome to another live feed for a very exciting Common Sense Sundays. I need to fix something here. Hang on, everyone. As you see my hand, there we go. Still messing with this thing, but we got some good news as far as video setup. But welcome to the live feed for Common Sense Sundays. This is episode 15 with Go Tell It to the Wall and me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. Sorry, we're making some adjustments on the fly today. It's been situations around the house and the studio, not big bad things, but just as you can see, my hair is kind of doing things today. I don't really even fully understand what it's doing, but it is what it is. All right, episode 15, got some stuff to get into, a little bit all over the place, have a couple of announcements as well. That being said, let's get into it. I don't know what is going on with my hair today. Hi, Paul. You're here on time today. See, you're forgiven for last week for being here on time. I also made sure my hair was a little funky today just for you, Paul. Like, see, I want it to be better, but it's not working that well for me. My hair is it's all over the place. I don't know what to do with it. Lots of hair bands and other such things. We're gonna have some fun with it over the next couple episodes. I don't want to mention that till we get into the episode, so let's get into it. All right, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, welcome to another very exciting episode of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall and me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. This is episode 15. Kind of a round number, I guess, if you're dividing by 5. I don't know at all. Let me fix this camera a little bit. I'm dealing with I'm just all over the place today, so bear with me as we kick off this episode. It's going to get better. I'm just a little bit all over the place, and I'm blaming it on the heat. But before we get to that, we kick things off with our social plugs every week. You can keep up with us during episodes, after episodes, before episodes, whenever you so please. And I'm guilting Paul Smith of Zombie Teeth Clothing over here. I'm giving him a hard time for being late to last week's episode. But you can do so in multiple locations. For instance, right now where we're live, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Like our page, check back often for updates. Of course, YouTube, head over to YouTube, search Go Tell It to the Wall, subscribe to our channel. That's where you're going to find all of our videos. All of our live feeds get posted after the fact, as well as our beer reviews, mental health Mondays, parenting playlist, and all of that great stuff. And of course, most importantly would be SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Bookmark that one, check back often. Definitely check out our Patreon campaign if you have the means to do so and see fit to do it. Please help us out financially. Every dollar helps. Help others out on there. Paul, you don't have a Patreon because you have a store, but there's so many artists and broadcasters and musicians up there. Gimme Motion's on there. He's a very close friend of the podcast, obviously. You got to plug your relatives at times. So check out Patreon, even if you're not going to support Go Tell It to the Wall. And of course, I mentioned it last week, we are officially kicked off with our Go Tell It to the Wall merch. Head over to the website. You're going to see a link for the merch there and pick up some merch. Pick up a mug, a t-shirt, sweatshirts have now been added. I feel like I added a tote bag too. Just adding random things that can be produced through the company that runs our merch site. And masks. I mentioned it before, get yourself a Go Tell It to the Wall mask through our merch site on there. Very important that you get some. It's not important at all. I don't expect to be selling a bunch of merch. We've always joked about this, like since the beginning of the podcast. There's so many influencers out there that have like millions of followers and they can't sell 2 t-shirts. Like I'm not anticipating selling a bunch. I don't have a bunch of talent like so many artists out there. This is really just branded stuff that we're putting out there. Oh, and also follow my Instagram account at SoCalSean. Follow that one. We're trying to get more Go Tell It to the Wall content up there, so you may see some of that popping up. Additionally, before we move on, something's not right. Studio suggestion submissions. That's right. If you have a submission for us to do for the suggestions, I always want to say like a suggestion for the submission. If you have a suggestion for our suggestions videos, hit me up through SeanO'RourkeLive.com or go to the Something's Not Right Studios YouTube channel or Twitter account and send them a direct message. We're going to be doing more of these coming down the pipe. I've got some scheduled to head over to be sent over to Something's Not Right Studios, as well as looking at some new bands to do. So send us those submissions. If you have a small band, or if you have a band you really you like, and for some reason you enjoy watching me talk about bands, send it my way, and we'll get it up there on the Something's Not Right Studios music suggestions. Webcam. There's an update on that. The webcam's actually been ordered. It's been ordered. It's being shipped. Now, I live in the United States. The U.S. Postal Service right now is not doing super well as far as getting deliveries. It's supposed to be delivered next week. I ordered it last week. My wife finally caught it. It was so funny. I'm sitting in the living room. My wife's in the studio using it because she's working for the day. And I think my kid was asleep, and I get a message. She's like, I got the webcam, and I ran in the studio. I was like, you did? You did? And sure enough, like 2 minutes after she ordered it, I looked on Best Buy because another friend of mine, I posted, another friend of mine was asking, oh, which one do you get? And I happened to look, it sold out already. Gone. So who knows when we'll get it. I'm hoping to have it for the next episode. No promises, simply because I know that it's been ordered, but who knows when it's going to arrive. It's everything being delivered is being delayed right now. And it's also not helping. I was joking with one of the Amazon guys, socially distanced. I was on my, oh, yes, Paul. See, Paul, send me some. Let's get a list going of stuff, because there's a couple of bands that you're really into that I'm not super familiar with. Aerial Salad's one of them, and I haven't gotten around to listening to them yet. But those might be some good suggestions. So I think I was joking with the Amazon delivery guy as I was on my porch, and he's like out on the sidewalk. You know, I was like, oh, just leave the package right there. And I was like, man, you got to be dying. And this is the other day when it was like 105 degrees here in Los Angeles. And that's where I live. So I don't even live in the hottest part of Los Angeles. For anyone that's familiar with Southern California, Los Angeles area, you probably hear the term the Valley. That is absolutely the hottest part of Los Angeles. So I think when we were at like 105, the Valley was at 110, 114, like something crazy, just something utterly crazy. And I was joking. I was like, how are you doing this? He's like, it's brutal, but we got to do it. And I was like, thank you, because I don't want to be out walking around in this, driving around in this heat. And granted, air conditioned vehicle or not, it's crazy out there. I walked outside the other day when it was 105, and it actually got to 107. And I hadn't been outside since early in the morning. I walked out, and it's that heat like getting punched in the face. Like you open a door and you're like, and that's the thing is I've lived in warmer climates the majority of my life, with the exception of the time I spent in Chicago, but born in Miami, and then lived in Southern California the majority of my life. I'm used to heat, but when you get over 100 and then you throw the humidity on top of it, which we are not used to here in Southern California, it just feels like you're melting. I did some yard work yesterday, and I was dying. I think I would chug one of my water bottles and then like refill it, chug it again, and then go back to, it was nuts. We're having this crazy heat wave, and it's not helping with the fires. I'm going to talk a little bit about the fires as well. All right, let's move on to some digital trends. I'm all over the place today. Just bear with me. It's been one of those weeks. It's hot. It's crazy, and I'll fill you in on all that. I mean, nothing bad. Just it's crazy out there right now. And I'm all over the place. All right, digital trends. Hashtag Melania ruins everything. That's right, that Melania Trump. Gotta work on this chair too. It gets picked up in the mic so much. Hear that? Yeah, I have a cheap chair in the studio, and I think this is one of those things I need to invest in a decent chair. Anyway, hashtag Melania ruins everything. Here's the thing with this hashtag. I agree. I get it. Like, I'm in support of this hashtag. However, the reason this hashtag is trending right now is because Melania Trump made some changes to the Rose Garden at the White House. And everyone is completely up in arms about this. I guess they took out some trees. I looked at it before and after, and I was like, I'm not seeing a huge difference here. Like, okay, some trees aren't there. And so, let me back up a minute. I understand being upset about this. The funny thing is that with this being a trending hashtag, the White House almost enjoys this. Because in the grand scheme of things, the master list of all the things that the White House has done wrong and is currently doing wrong, some fucking plants is not that important right now. It's just not. And trust me, I know I'm gonna get a message. So whoever's out there listening, as you're about to type that message and send it to me through SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Yes, I always say you can be passionate about multiple causes at once. However, there's at least a dozen other causes with the White House that we should be concerned about. compared to some plants. So just be upset, but maybe don't put all of your energy toward being upset about some trees being removed. Like, let's remove the orange menace that is in the White House. Let's worry about that removal right now, as opposed to some trees. It's so funny, too, because I was walking in the studio, and my wife turns to me, and she's like, you know, everyone's so up in arms about this. And I just started laughing, because I had a little note here with this hashtag. I was like, yeah, no, this is why we're married, honey. All right, moving along. Hashtag Barack Obama. Hashtag Barack Obama. This is, of course, trending right now because we just finished up, the Democratic National Committee just finished up the Democratic National Convention for 2020. I actually watched a little bit of it. If you've been a long-time listener to the podcast, I don't talk about politics on this podcast. I never have. I kicked off this podcast saying I've never talked about politics. Unfortunately, less than a month at the most later, the Orange Menace was elected. So we dipped the toes into some politics, but it's more common sense stuff. However, I did take a few minutes and watch some of the Democratic National Convention just as it was on TV, just to see what was going on. You know, keep myself somewhat informed. I'll be honest, I'm not going to do this with the Republican National Convention. That's just going to make me mad. But I was interested in seeing what many of the speakers on the Democratic side were going to say. And the reason it's trending is because Barack Obama, of course, spoke. President Barack Obama, who was president before the Orange Menace somehow got elected. And it got me thinking, and the reason I bring up this hashtag is, to me, this isn't even a political thing. Regardless of where you fall on anything, I am not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I am an independent. I don't like having a group of people tell me how I'm supposed to think. I just don't. Now, obviously, I tend to align a little more with Democrats these days because I'm a very progressive person, just in general. But I'm not attached to any party. However, when you watch Barack Obama, someone like Barack Obama talk during the Democratic National Convention like he did this last week, it's a stark reminder of what it's like to have somebody who is eloquent, have somebody who can speak, and doesn't just sound like a bloated gas bag when they're behind a podium. And this isn't just Barack Obama. I'm sure we can look at speeches from presidents on either side of the aisle, either party. And it's a ridiculous stark contrast to what we have currently in the White House. And I've seen people talk about this, political analysts. They're like, every ex-president has to be furious about this because it's making a mockery of the office of president. So that's why I bring up this hashtag. And I encourage you, even if you're not into politics, just to watch that speech from Barack Obama. Eloquent, informed, and a little bit of a bitch slap to the opposite party, which I enjoyed. I'll tell you, I enjoyed that. And not because I'm a Democrat, just because, holy shit, what's going on there in Washington? All right, moving along, this one kills me. I'm going to warn everyone right now, before I even talk about this hashtag, be careful searching this hashtag. If you're sensitive like I am, don't watch the video. Just don't watch it. It's horrid. But that hashtag is hashtag animal brutality by police. I can't remember exactly where this was because I could not read more about it, but I wanted to bring it up because it's just a disgusting display of someone overstepping their bounds. A police officer overstepping their bounds. If you're not familiar with this, there was an officer walking his canine partner, canine officer, down a sidewalk, and a dog saw the canine, the dog that was in a yard, fenced in a yard, saw the dog, ran to the fence and started barking, and then the canine officer started barking back, and the officer didn't even really fully lose control, but started to lose control of the dog. So this is the part I'm warning you about. The officer then pulls out his firearm and shoots the dog through the fence, killing the dog. There was no threat from the dog. The dog was on the other side of a fence. I can tell you, I live in Los Angeles. We live at a very urban part of Los Angeles. Everybody has dogs. I don't have dogs, but you walk around my street, you hear dogs barking, and the dogs are going to run to the gate and bark at other dogs. It's just a common thing. I would expect the dog that's been trained, professionally trained to be a police dog, I would expect that dog to have a little more control. Let's not get upset at a dog that is literally behind a fence. Behind a fence, this dog was shot. And again, I wish I had not seen the video as it came up on social platforms. So maybe don't watch the video if that's something you're sensitive to, like myself. But be aware of this. This is just another example of police and people in authority overstepping their bounds for no reason. For no reason. The guy wasn't threatened. This dog was also half the size of his dog. Half the size of the police dog. It's absolutely insane. All right, another hashtag going around right now. You know what this one is all about. Hashtag DeJoy must go. Hashtag DeJoy must go. He's the current Postmaster General here in the United States of America, causing all these problems to the point where who knows if I'm getting my webcam next week. I don't know. Might come, maybe it won't. Who knows? So this is, of course, trending right now because people are sharing it and people are calling for his resignation. And we're actually seeing some movement in our government here. Again, I don't like to talk politics, but we are seeing a little bit of movement to reverse course on these changes, the removal of mailboxes, the removal of sorting machines, and all that stuff that's been delaying our mail. And again, if you're not familiar with this, I've talked about this a few episodes now. I'm not smart enough to really speak to the logistics of it, but know that the U.S. Postal Service is something that is vital to our country. I mean, everybody's postal service is vital, I imagine. I'm not super familiar with, posts in the UK, Canada, but all these things have got to be important to every country. And in the U.S., it's just the U.S. Postal Service. Everyone's got a different name for it. It's something we need. It's something that is necessary. It's inherent to our communication, to the way that things travel around this country. And most importantly right now, to us getting our ballots and being able to send those in. So we'll see what happens. I'm following it, but I encourage you all to be informed as far as that goes, because it is extremely important, not only to our democracy, but just to our well-being. You like sending a birthday card to your grandmother, and it costs you 40 cents or whatever. Try sending that through UPS or FedEx. It's like $5 for a card. And don't quote me on that price. I don't know exactly, but it's not cheap. It is not cheap. All right, hashtag save our stages. This one is trending right now. Extremely necessary, because I know this is happening elsewhere, and Paul, you can probably speak to this, what's going on in your neck of the woods. But it has to do with the National Independent Venue Association, people sharing this hashtag and also putting on charity events, which we're going to talk a little bit more as we get to entertainment. But the importance here is we're actually losing venues because of COVID right now. Venues that aren't able to bring in live music and bring in revenue are actually, some are being forced to close, some are on the verge of closing. Here in Los Angeles, we've actually already lost Spaceland, which is it's an old venue. It's been around for a long time. They have punk shows, but they also have other kinds of shows. It's all lots of stuff going on at that venue. It's gone already. So is House of Big Machines, which was a fairly new venue here in Los Angeles, but it was a great venue. I was there less than a year ago seeing the Bomb Pops and Anti-Flag and loved it. Gone. And now we are hearing that Alex's Bar down there in Long Beach, for those of you familiar with Southern California, is also, see, Paul, same thing in the UK, bunch are closing. Alex's Bar down there in Long Beach is on the verge of having to close their doors permanently as well, which is it's just sad. And I have such a soft spot for Alex's Bar, simply because Alex's Bar in Long Beach is the very, very first venue, very first venue that I saw the Barstool Preachers, who are very, very near and dear to me personally, musically and just the way they carry themselves, and also the great Paul Smith, who is their official photographer and artist. So very, very near and dear to me, and Alex's Bar might be completely gone soon. So we'll see, and I'm keeping an eye on I have two venues right here. One of them is a mile away, and the other one's a half mile away from my house, or less than a mile away and a half mile away. Keeping an eye on those. I'm really hoping that those aren't gonna go the way of the dodo, I guess. And as far as COVID updates, that's one of them. We're losing places, and we need these venues. For me personally, my mental health relies on being able to see live music. This is absolutely the longest I've gone in years without seeing live music, and it's sad, And I'm not going to sit here and complain that these places need to open. I'm going to complain because we need to take care of these places until it's safe for them to open. Keep that in mind. Your favorite bands are going to need a place to play once we get back to normal. And if all the places are gone, what are they going to do? We got to support them. The interesting thing I've found this past week, really the past couple weeks, but especially this past week, is the differences state to state as far as COVID. I have relatives in like Connecticut and stuff. Other states are actually opening up a little more than California is, at least areas of California. So it's this really weird kind of juxtaposition of, people in another state and city that are they're out doing, not completely back to normal, but they're out able to do things and not just stuck at home. And then here in Los Angeles, people are still going out and doing things and not caring about others. But here in Los Angeles, a lot of people are still just completely stuck at home. So you have that crazy juxtaposition, and we still have a little way to go, I think, here in Southern California. We still have a little way to go. I did see, literally before I was walking in the studio, Orange County got taken off of the state watch list. And if they do that for 2 weeks consistently, they stay off the state watch list. Apparently, they're going to open schools. But that's... Anyone familiar with Orange County, that's going to turn into a political thing pretty quick, because it already has, and it's just going to continue to be a political thing down there with Orange County. It's like another country. In comparison to Los Angeles. I exaggerate that, but it genuinely is. People don't realize that. They're like, oh yeah, California. So it's like, whoa. Go south of Los Angeles and see what you start running into. It's different. It's different, that's for sure. All right, one more COVID update. MLB, Major League Baseball, has had to postpone more games. Shockingly, postponing more games. I feel like I can just leave this talking point in for every episode, because I don't even have to look it up. I'm like, oh yeah, they probably postponed more games. And now the NFL has the National Football League has actually closed a bunch of their facilities because they are looking at some problems with testing and a possible outbreak. Shockingly, we don't need sports. We don't need sports. We just don't. We don't need to worry about millionaires getting their paychecks, and please don't send me a message. Oh, my cousin plays and he's on a practice. It's fine. I get it. But you know what? The ice cream vendor down the street is having trouble making ends meet right now, too. So, is sports more important? I don't know. Sports, we don't need it right now. It's not important. We don't. And if you're going to try to do it the way basketball and hockey have done it, in a bubble, and keep everybody safe. That's simple. We have to continue to be vigilant. We're not out of this yet. We're just not. We're gradually getting out of it. In some places, some people are more out of it. Some areas, cities, states, countries. But we still have a way to go until we can be completely open and be able to see a show again, go eat at a restaurant, have a drink at a bar with a friend. Still going to be a little while for that. All right, mental health. I really don't have a lot this week. I want to share just one thing personally with you, but I will be honest with everyone. And I only bring this up because I know everyone out there is having a tough time. I had a particularly tough week. I had a couple nights this week where I literally slept 2 hours and just tossed and turned all night. And it's been one of those weeks for me personally, and I know others out there are struggling with this too, and whether it's lack of sleep, whether it's depression, anxiety, whatever it might be, just know that you're not the only one out there. And I will say, the one thing that did make me happy this week is I have reclaimed my yard. I had a tenant, which I have not spoken much about, but I have mentioned she was not very caring. And I'm not going to give any names or anything, so if you know me personally, don't go sharing names and stuff. Because I know I have friends that listen to this that know this person. But was not cautious at all. Going to church and stuff, and no mask, and all this other stuff. Actually moved out this past week, thank God. So I've reclaimed my backyard, because my guest house lets out into the backyard, and I had to completely avoid that area, because I was like, well, I've given this up to someone that doesn't care about caution right now in the time of COVID. So I've been enjoying that. Like I said, I was doing some yard work yesterday, and I'm hoping that's going to kind of help me personally as far as my own mental health goes, because it's just a little bit of a change. It's not me sitting inside, and I don't sit inside completely all the time, but now I'm able to utilize this. I went and cleaned out my kids' pool. We have a 4 foot by 4 foot pool, framed pool, little pool that's probably a foot and a half deep. But I cleaned that out, filled it up. My kid was able to get in the pool. It was real nice, hanging out on the deck yesterday, like a typical kind of summer afternoon, just lacking the extra friends that are usually here on a typical summer afternoon when it's not COVID. All right, let's move on to some parenting. Got a couple good things for you this week. I also have something I want to talk about, and actually, Paul, I'm glad you're here, because you were probably the same as me in not getting involved in this. I've mentioned this group on Facebook, Punk Rock Dads. Really enjoy the group, and my wife enjoys that I have the group, because there are so many mom groups out there on social platforms and in various forums and all this, well, this past week in Punk Rock's Dad, a debate popped up over including women in the group, females. And this was, I didn't even really know how to think on this, because, and I'm not going to toot my own horn, but, I have a long way to go as far as, I don't want to say respect, but we can all do better as far as respect for the opposite sex, and equality, really, when it comes to anything. So of course I can do better, but I'm also pretty understanding My wife is a bit of a feminist, and you know, we get along very well. So this was a weird one for me. I said, well, no, women shouldn't be excluded really from anything. But then the other side of me was, like I said, my wife has 24 like mom groups. She's not active in 24 of them. She's active in like 3, 4 of them that she gets info and stuff. And she's had these since the beginning, since our daughter was born. I only got into punk rock dads like 9 months ago. And I remember, a few months after my daughter was born, my wife would say, I have all these mom groups. I really wish there was something like that for you, for dads. And I was like, I'm fine. But then Punk Rock Dads comes up, and it was kind of this place for dads. Yeah, see, I'm with you, Paul. The comment, see, I think, you and I, we fall in the same, I know we fall in the same place here. Like, as far as this goes. The comments got out of hand. People were a little ridiculous with it. Really on both sides. But really ridiculous. A little bit of sexism going on in that group. Which is why I didn't really know how I felt. But as I thought about it, and someone actually, an admin from the group posted something really well thought out, really well written, as far as why it should maybe just be for dads, for men, for males. And a big part of that was mental health. A lot of men have trouble opening up about mental health. It took me 20 plus years to actually be open about mental health. It's crazy. It's a tough subject for a lot of men. And stuff like that, and just having a male perspective on things is just different. And it's different. So as much as I have no problem with women being in there, these kind of things that come up, I get it. I get it that men kind of want that space. Not because men are superior or anything, just want to be able to open up with someone who's maybe going through a similar experience. And the funny thing is, I actually asked my wife, because she knows about Punk Rock Dads. She loves that I have it. It's funny, I'll be scrolling through and I'll laugh at my phone, and she's like, what is it, something from, and I'm like, yeah, Punk Rock Dads. I love it. And I said to her, I was like, do you think, and I thought I would turn it into a conversation. I was like, do you think they should let women in? This came up, and before I even got that out, she's like, no, because of that. There's not a ton of resources. So I'm all for equality, but I see both sides of it, but especially once my wife said, no, have the group. And then, of course, they created a punk rock parents group, which is like, yeah, let's have a parents group. We can make all kinds of groups, And that's the thing, when you get these large groups that have kind of a broader theme, you're going to run into there's 9,000 people in that group. You're going to run into differing opinions and all this kind of stuff. It's just, once you get to that size, that's what happens. Which is always interesting. I think when you have something a little more focused, like I run the Barstool Preachers fan group. Paul is in there as well. A lot of friends in there. It's Barstool Preachers. So if you're not posting preacher stuff, it's like, no, we're not doing this. It's not a broad spectrum of things that can be posted and discussed and all that kind of good stuff. All right, Daniel Tiger. For those of you with younger kids, toddlers, pre-K, preschoolers at home, Daniel Tiger actually just came out with a COVID episode where they talk about a virus there in the land of make-believe, if you're familiar with Daniel Tiger. It's actually available on the, see, that's what kills me too. I do want to go back to that, Paul. You're right. The transphobic stuff is what gets ridiculous. And that is such a gray area. And that's what happens with 9,000 people. That kills me every time. I can't. I just can't. like I said, I have so much growing to do, but I look at some people out there and what they believe and what they're spewing, and it's like, oh, wow. You have a much further way to go than I do. But Daniel Tiger, his COVID episode, I think it's great. I watched it with my 3-year-old yesterday, and it gives a perspective for those of us out there that are having trouble discussing the virus with our kids, especially with young kids. I think if you have a teenager, or even like a 10-year-old, like 10 up to teenage kid, it's probably a little easier to explain what's going on. It's going to be frustrating for them, but it's a little easier. Whereas a 3-year-old, it's like, my 3-year-old likes to, she says the virus a lot, or she'll be like, oh, when the virus is gone, can we go to, that's the one that killed me the other day. When the virus is gone, can we go to Chuck E. Cheese? My kid's been to Chuck E. Cheese once in her life, but asked me, when the virus is gone, can we go to Chuck E. Cheese? And I had to tell her, like, nope, sorry. I mean, I said it much nicer than that, but I was like, even when the virus is gone, Chuck E. Cheese is closed. No more Chuck E. Cheeses. Probably not the best place to be going anyway, even after the virus is gone if it was still open. But check that out. If you've got a toddler, preschool age kid, I highly recommend the Daniel Tiger COVID episode. And one more thing I will tell you, if you have a toddler, younger kid, this is something that's come up. I mentioned last episode, my 3-year-old is now doing the Afraid of the Dark thing, and it's more of a stalling thing. We had a tough one this past week with her just not wanting to go to sleep, wanting to sleep in our bed, which is not something we do, and just struggling with that. And here's where these parenting groups come up, and they're very important. Is my wife got in one of her parenting groups, and people were actually already talking about it. A couple of other mothers had talked about their, specifically 3-year-olds, that were having the same kind of trouble. And I think it's partly the age, and it's also just we're all still quarantined, and life is very different right now. And that's why I bring this up. So if you have a younger kid at home, you're not the only one dealing with this. I don't even necessarily have a ton of tips, but I will say stay strong on some things, because once you get that kid sleeping in your bed, like it's tough to get him out. It really is. It's tough to get him out. From what I've heard, I haven't. My kid comes in the room in the morning. My wife usually gets up before me, and she'll go, start getting ready or whatever, and I'll kind of still be in bed for a few minutes, and my 3-year-old will come and get in the bed, and then we'll kind of like hang out and cuddle and do that for a few minutes, but she's not sleeping in the bed. It's just not something I would recommend. All right, now we're just gonna move on to some fun stuff. I'm still exhausted. I think this week I averaged 3 hours of sleep a night, because I did get like 1 or 2 nights of decent, 6-7 hours, but I had a few like 2-hour nights. Oh man. All right, got some good entertainment stuff for you. I want to get sappy here for a minute. I'm wearing one of my Rancid shirts today in the studio. Rancid, Out Come the Wolves. My favorite Rancid album. I always waver between that and Let's Go, because there are a couple tracks on Let's Go that are just so good. But Out Come the Wolves, definitely my favorite Rancid album. Came out 25 years ago yesterday. 25 years ago. Got me feeling really nostalgic, because there are a few bands out there, there are a few songs out there, there are a few albums out there, and this is everybody, not just me, that they're very important to your life. Development is not the right word, but just kind of your upbringing and your attitude. So a very young Sean, when Out Come the Wolves came out, I was like life-changing, for lack of a better word, because 11th Hour, Roots Radical, Ruby Soho, of course, all these songs really continue to propel me into the punk rock world personally. And Rancid, still to this day, an extremely important band to me. Top 5 band, possibly my favorite band. It's so hard. I have these discussions with people all the time, especially with Laura, my sister. Like, well, Unwritten Law is the hometown hero. It's hard to, but Rancid, it's been 25 years since Out Come the Wolves, and they're still putting out albums, and they're still fantastic albums, and they're still killing it live. Still killing it. So thank you, Rancid, Tim Armstrong, Lars, Matt, Brandon now, and Brett originally, their original drummer. Thank you for, it's over 25 years now, but 25 years since really just a 13-year-old Sean was like, holy shit. Holy shit. Speaking of bands, Paul, I know you're into these guys, especially because of the connection there. I found a new obsession this past week, a band called The Roadblocks. They're actually a band out of Germany. It's funny, I played some for my wife yesterday as she was cutting my hair, and she goes, oh, no, first she goes, oh, Preachers? And I was like, no. Similar sound, yes, but no, that's not TJ's voice. But then sure enough, I play the song, and TJ guest vocals on one of their songs. I'm like, well, that's TJ, actually. So band out of Germany, but they have that oi sound. Fantastic. If you are a Barstool Preachers fan, you will 100% be a fan of The Roadblocks. Highly recommend them. I'm absolutely obsessed with them. And Troubled Times is the name of the track that has TJ on it. But really, the entire album is great. They just released an album in 2020. So make sure you're checking them out and supporting them. Add them on Spotify. Do whatever things, however you enjoy your... and I had that totally wrong. The name of the album is Troubled Times, not the song. The song is Invincible. couple. I've only gotten through the album like twice. But I'm absolutely obsessed. Cannot recommend the Roadblocks enough. And I say weirdly from Germany only because I was doing this with that last song playing, the competition that kicked off yesterday, and it's like I'm so used to hearing a certain sound out of Germany, but that's just kind of my closed-mindedness. It's just what I'm used to hearing, that kind of heavy, the Rammstein type stuff out of Germany. And it's the same way with like the UK. It's just I just assume everything coming out of the UK is kind of Oi or Barstool Preachers or that kind of stuff, but obviously it's not. It's just, so I'm always like, wow, that's weird that they're out of Germany, but there's probably a whole subsect in Germany that like, no, we got a whole bunch of bands that play like this. So I say that, but that's just kind of I would chalk that up to my ignorance. Bad Cop played a little live stream yesterday with a bunch of other bands in remembrance of Steve Soto. I know you're a big fan, Paul. And they actually did it to support NITO, N-I-T-O, which is the National National Independent Talent Organization. Thank you. Should have written that down. And also Save Our Stages, which is they're working to help out all these independent venues. I don't know that you can catch it after the fact, but thank you to Bad Cop, and all the other bands that did that, helping to raise money and keep these fantastic venues open. As I said, last song playing, that competition kicked off yesterday, so make sure you join that group, vote on all the bands. Yeah, I haven't watched the full thing. I caught some yesterday, Paul. I haven't watched the full thing yet. Make sure you check out those bands. Support some underground bands. Vote for your favorites. I gave you my favorites last week, as well as in the rundown video that is on YouTube. So if you're interested in that, make sure you go check that out. But definitely check out the Last Song Playing group on Facebook. You should be able to link directly from facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. You should, if you're friends with me on Facebook as well, you should just see it right there on my page or timeline or whatever the hell they call it these days. So support some underground bands, especially these days. They can't play these small venues. They're only able to sell so much merch at this point. So make sure you're supporting them. And back to Bad Cop, you can watch it after the fact. You can watch that whole Steve Soto tribute. So I will be doing that today. Maybe I will go sit in my kid's pool and put that on the television on my deck. Maybe crack a beer or a nice glass of whiskey and spend my evening doing that. That might be the rest of my day there. I finished Umbrella Academy. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. You're going to be wanting more. No spoilers on that one. And a couple more things before we finish up for the day. Cursed on Netflix. This is a new show that I found. I think it's been out for a little while, but for those of you that are fans of Arthurian legend, King Arthur and everything else, this is revolving around King Arthur legends, but it's interesting because it is actually based on a book by Frank Miller. If you're familiar with Frank Miller, he is the writer behind Sin City, both Sin City movies, as well as 300, the film 300. So if you're familiar with the cinematic style there, it is very much that same Frank Miller cinematic style in Cursed, revolving around, for those of you familiar with King Arthur, Nimue, Uther, Merlin, but it has a little bit of a dark side to it. So I will warn you that this isn't like the Adventures of Merlin that I recommended a few weeks ago. That's a little more campy. This one is not. And I definitely wouldn't recommend turning it on at like 11 o'clock at night when your wife is asleep on the couch next to you and you're just kind of alone, and suddenly all of a sudden you're like, whoa, it's beautiful. But you could get some dreams, if you know what I mean. If you're familiar with Frank Miller, you already know what I'm talking about. All right, one more thing I'm going to leave you with, big friend of the podcast, currently on the live stream, Zombie Teeth Podcast just dropped a new episode. I'm obviously biased because Paul is a good friend of mine, but also I'm going to be extra biased with this episode because Paul interviewed Josh Roush, who worked with Kevin Smith on the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. And obviously, we are big Kevin Smith fans here at Go Tell It to the Wall. That's my little Jay. He sits here on my desk. I have a giant J over here signed by J Muse. It's too big to pick up and put in front of the camera. So make sure you're subscribed to Zombie Teeth Podcast on Spotify. That's where I listen, but it should be on multiple other platforms. That's how the podcast world is. Like I always joke, you can get Go Tell It to the Wall anywhere. pretty much I'm not on SoundCloud, but it's pretty much everywhere else, and I can't even keep track of all of them because for those of you that don't know, you host a podcast, you run it through a podcast host, which we use Podomatic to do that, and then Podomatic literally just parses it out to all the other podcast platforms, which is great because I'm able to just maintain one thing and then it goes out to all the things. So listen on whichever is your favorite podcast platform, both Zombie Teeth and Go Tell It to the Wall, obviously, Common Sense Sundays, and so make sure you're checking that out. Subscribe, leave feedback, give what's the word? Rate. I was like, you can tell I'm like done for the week because I'm like ratings. I don't know. Yes, leave good feedback on the podcast or bad feedback. I mean, try not to do that. But if you think it's terrible, I always say, if you think it's terrible, did he work with the Osbournes? See, I'm not real familiar with Josh's work. I kind of learned about him through your stuff, Paul, and I'd heard about the Kevin Smith stuff, but if he worked with the Osbournes, like on the show, I'm going to go look now. Maybe I've met the guy. If he worked on the Osbournes show, was in the Osbournes house around that time, then might have met him. For those of you that are familiar with my history there. Not going to get into it right now. Maybe we'll talk about it next time around. All right. That's going to do it for episode 15 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall and me, your favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Go Tell It to the Wall. Also, YouTube, head over there, search Go Tell It to the Wall, subscribe to our channel. Most importantly, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Bookmark that. Check back often. Go see all the blogs and photos and videos and buy some damn merch if you want to. Or don't. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, did the Osbournes podcast. Got it. I got to catch up on Zombie Teeth. I have not. Obviously, that one just dropped today, or maybe last night. Time difference, UK. But I'll be checking that out. Make sure you subscribe to Go Tell It to the Wall on your favorite podcast platform, whatever that might be. Leave us some ratings and reviews and all that good stuff if you like it, even if you don't. The subscribing helps our numbers, so please do that. All right, that's going to do it. I feel like I was all over the place today. We definitely didn't have any... We were off the rails from the very beginning, but that happens at times. We will be back next week. Same wall place, same wall time with episode 16 of Common Sense Sundays. And hopefully a webcam. We'll see. We'll see how the mail comes. I don't know. We might have a webcam by then. It might be pretty cool. And you might hear me a little better if you're someone that only watches the live feeds. You're not getting the full audio. You're not getting the richness of the one and only Sean O'Rourke. Yeah, I know. Sometimes I have a bit of an ego. It's rare, but sometimes it pops up. That being said, we'll see you next week with episode 16 of Common Sense Sundays. And remember, Wall fans, Common Sensors podcast consumers, no matter what you do, no matter who you're with, no matter where you go, no matter why you are doing it, always use common sense. All right. Thank you, Paul, for joining. As always, thank you, everyone else that came and joined. Thank you, anyone watching this after the fact. One thing I forgot to mention, my hair is like I'm doing this. It's the framing on Facebook. Hopefully, this is going to be changed with the webcam whenever that arrives. But my hair is doing things today, and I think what we're going to do is over the next few episodes, like the many hairstyles of Sean. I don't know, because it's just kind of doing its own things now. I tried to do like a little mohawk. I just don't have the patience. That's my problem. I don't have patience to like deal with this, and it's like, that's enough of that. So maybe we'll have some fun. I'll try out different hairstyles. If you have recommendations for hairstyles, send them to me. I'm not going to like totally cut my hair, but things that can be done with this. We'll have some fun with it. All right. Again, thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you next week. I'm exhausted. I'm just like I know we're all over the place. All over the place this week, and that's okay. But we'll be back next week. Same wall place, same wall time. And until then, if you have any complaints at all... No, see, Paul, I can't do... you know why? That's the one. I mean, maybe I could try the middle parting. But see, prior to spiked hair Sean in the late 90s, like I very much had the Lars Fredrickson, Out Come the Wolves hairstyle in the late 90s. Before that, I had the step cut, which is not quite this, but like shaved up to here, and then blip. That one, and that was my problem, was today I was trying, and it was like, no. And I think it's Out Come the Wolves' fault, because 25 years ago, that was my hairstyle. So maybe we'll try it. We'll see how it is. Been trying some different hair bands and stuff. We'll see how it is. And until then, if you've got any complaints at all, especially about my hair, go tell them to a wall.